The film begins with a woman returning to her solitary lakeside house, a place she once shared with her late husband, Owen. The night is spent indulging in alcohol and indulging in memories of her departed spouse. Watching a recording of their wedding celebration evokes cherished recollections of their life together. Unaccustomed to sleeping alone, she tosses and turns throughout the night, the vacant space beside her a constant reminder of her loss. Suddenly, a series of raps shatters the silence. Determined to investigate, the woman descends the stairs but finds no one around. The sight that chills her to the bone? The faint outline of a man against the glass door? Morning finds her waking up in her husband's deserted workspace. As she walks to her car, a sound pierces the air, the creaking gate leading to the dock. She fixes the noisy gate just as she notices a trail of muddy footprints leading from the water's edge, as if someone disembarked from a boat and walked along the dock. Grappling with this unsettling discovery, a deafening crack echoes from the woods, mirroring the traumatic event of her husband's by gunshot. Beth, who works as an educator, spends her afternoon after school browsing for a new residence to purchase. Her tranquility is disrupted by a concerned parent demanding an explanation for their son's mediocre Spanish grade. Consumed by grief, Beth blurts out a painful truth. Last Thursday, her husband took their boat out and ended his life with a bullet. This unexpected revelation leaves the parent speechless, prompting a hasty departure. Upon returning home, Beth is greeted by her neighbor, Mel, who drops by to offer support. During their conversation, she realizes the muddy footprints by the dock have vanished. Bewildered, she inquires about any gunshots that morning, but Mel denies hearing anything of the sort. Later that evening, she gathers the videotapes and carelessly throws them into a box, purging herself of all things that evoke memories of Owen. The widowed woman seeks solace in her husband's office, where she discovers a book filled with his architectural sketches. However, as Beth flipped through the pages, she began noticing odd, labyrinthine patterns Owen had drawn, and a cryptic message, "Outsmarted, don't believe it." Reaching the house illustration, she found a mirrored version alongside it. Turning the page, she saw the first floor plan eerily resemble their own house, with a reversed layout presented next to it. Overcome with fatigue, Beth disregarded it and retired for the night. Her slumber was abruptly interrupted by the jarring sound of loud music blaring from the downstairs speakers. During this terrifying episode, she received a sudden string of text messages from her deceased husband Owen, urging her to descend the stairs. Panic-stricken, she dialed his number. To her astonishment, someone answered, and she faintly recognized Owen's voice instructing her to look outside. Following his cryptic message, she witnessed her husband, clad only in his birthday suit, standing beside a body of water. The next thing she knew, Beth inexplicably found herself sprawled on the bathroom floor. She frantically checked her phone, searching for any evidence of the messages from her husband the previous night, but found none. Despite this, a gnawing curiosity took hold. She retrieved a box containing Owen's belongings from her car and examined his phone. Of course, there were no recently sent texts. Afterwards, she delved into his phone's photo gallery, where she stumbled upon a peculiar picture of a woman bearing an uncanny resemblance to herself. Perplexed, she sought out her best friend, Claire, confident that the woman in the picture wasn't her, as she didn't own a shirt resembling the one worn in the image. However, Claire simply brushed it off, insisting Beth was overreacting as the woman in the photo was her exact double. To lift her spirits, Claire invites her to join her and her friends at the bar. Unfortunately, the evening turns out to be quite uncomfortable, as Beth starts talking about how she believes there is a ghost in her house and how she has begun sleepwalking since her husband's death. Apparently, her husband used to sleepwalk when he was alive, but Beth never did. To make matters worse, Beth takes out the note Owen left her and reads it aloud in front of everyone. The note is very cryptic. It says, "You were right, there is nothing. Nothing is after you. You're safe now." Not wanting the situation to become even more uncomfortable, Claire cuts the evening short and takes Beth home. Once they arrive, Beth admits that she understands what the note means, because when she was 17, she was in a car accident and died for 4 minutes. She experienced the emptiness after death, and for the longest time, Owen didn't believe her about it. But based on the note, it seems Owen finally accepted her view in his last moments. Out of compassion, Claire stays with her until she falls asleep. However, Beth is abruptly awakened later that night by very loud music blasting through the house speakers again. She is alone now and can faintly hear Owen's voice whispering for her to open the front door. When she complies, she sees several terrified women running through the woods. As Beth follows them, she sees 2 women jumping into the lake, followed by a third one. Strangely, she notices a light coming from a house on the other side of the lake, and hears her husband's voice urging her to get into the boat. She draws near the vessel, but recoiling at the sight of its blood-soaked surface, she whirls around. Yet the ordeal persists, as crimson footprints mar the dock, and a gurgling sound emanates from the water. Uttering a question into the emptiness, she inquires if Owen is present, only to witness bloody footprints approaching. As she extends a hand, she's flung backward. The next thing she registers, she's disoriented on the boat, awakening in the center of the lake. She then treks back to her dwelling, but there she discovers a mirrored replica of her house. Once again, she inexplicably sees other women resembling her in the various chambers, and Owen as well. He abruptly constricts her airway, prompting the woman to flee. As Beth approaches and unlocks the front door, she sees herself sprawled on the couch, which results in her awakening on the couch with the door ajar. Recognizing the situation's peculiarity, she delves into Owen's cloud storage and discovers a series of photographs of other women with similar appearances, suggesting Owen may have been deceitful. To grapple with her experience, she embarks on a journey across the lake, hoping to locate the mirrored house she saw the previous night. During her search, she encounters her neighbor Mel, who bewilderingly informs her that a house can't exist there, as construction on county land is prohibited. Beth continues her trek, until she discovers a scratch on a tree and decides to investigate. Unforeseenly, she stumbles upon a dilapidated house resembling her own, and enters it. Upon ascending the stairs, she finds a grotesque sculpture depicting a woman being impaled. After this discovery, she goes to Mel's, inquiring if he has any knowledge about it. Mel vehemently denies knowing about the house, but he admits to seeing Owen venturing into the woods at night on one occasion, accompanied by a woman who bore a resemblance to Beth. Shortly after that, Owen showed up at Mel's place and confessed to having dark desires he was attempting to overcome. Assuming Owen was being cryptic about an extramarital affair, Mel didn't press for details and never informed Beth of this. He apologizes for withholding this information and tells Beth to focus on positive aspects from now on. But naturally, it's not that straightforward. Once Beth arrives home, she ransacks through Owen's belongings until she discovers a book about the occult. Tucked within the pages, she also finds pictures similar to Owen's of the grotesque sculpture and mentions of sinister forces. She tries to locate the bookstore where the book was purchased. In the process, she knocks over the sculpture out of frustration, but it remains upright. It's at this moment that she suddenly hears a series of footsteps emanating from the other room and decides to explore it while armed with a bottle of liqueur. Determined to get answers, Beth ventures to the occult bookstore. There, she inquires of an employee if they maintain purchase records, but unfortunately they don't. By chance, she spots one of the women from Owen's phone browsing the shelves. Beth initiates a greeting and discovers the woman works at the store. The woman reveals that Owen frequented the bookstore several times a year. She acknowledges going on a date with Owen, but insists there was no intimacy and they barely knew each other. Beth finds her explanation credible, leaving her bewildered about Owen's motives before his demise. Beth attempts to confide in her best friend Claire, recounting everything she's recently learned. However, Claire reiterates her advice to move forward. Beth makes an effort to listen this time and decides to pack some essentials and check into a hotel for a few nights. Just as she's about to leave, the woman from the bookstore arrives at her doorstep. The two settle down for a conversation. Finally, the woman confesses that Owen once took her to the house and even revealed the mirrored house in the woods. There, he showed her the grotesque sculpture, and their encounter turned intimate with a kiss. However, things took a dark turn when Owen began choking her. She pleaded with him to stop, and afterward, he apologized and drove her home. He expressed a need to overcome his urges and used that as a reason to end their connection. With the story concluded, the woman departs. Beth's curiosity is now at an all-time high, compelling her to return to the dilapidated house in the woods. Inside, she pleads with the emptiness, begging for a response from Owen. As she navigates the decayed floorboards, one gives way beneath her. Peering through the broken floorboards, she discovers a horrifying sight, a collection of bodies concealed in tarps. The revelation, potentially the women from her dreams, sends shivers down Beth's spine, prompting her to flee back to her house. Beth attempts to contact her best friend Claire via phone, but her calls go unanswered. Consequently, Beth leaves a message detailing the horrifying discovery she made in the dilapidated house. Afterward, she seeks solace in a shower. However, the tranquility is shattered as the speakers abruptly blare to life once more. Beth approaches the source of the sound, but the noise ceases immediately upon her arrival. Overcome with grief and longing, Beth calls out Owen's name, yearning to speak to him again. When she raises her gaze, a message scrawled on the fogged mirror catches her eye. Here, entering the bathroom, Beth observes a set of damp footprints near the door. Reaching out into the emptiness, she's astonished to feel a presence. As she lunges forward for an embrace, the invisible figure reciprocates. However, the illusion shatters when the figure denies being Owen. Beth attempts to flee the room, but the door slams shut abruptly. The next time she glances at the mirror, a reflection of a terrified woman appears, followed by a horrifying scene unfolding. Owen viciously murders the woman. Back in reality, Beth experiences a similar sensation of choking. When her vision clears, she discovers the door ajar, granting her access to the bedroom. Inside, everything is reversed. Several women frantically conceal themselves as Owen enters, dragging a lifeless female body. In the corner, a shadowy figure pivots towards Beth. Fear propels Beth downstairs, where she encounters another disturbing vision, Owen having sex with another woman. The shadowy figure remains a constant presence, looming in the corner until Beth finally confronts it directly. As Beth is dragged away by the invisible entity, she's bombarded with nightmarish visions. These visions depict Owen brutally killing other women, followed by a scene of him weeping beside a bloody corpse. The ordeal culminates with Beth being thrown downstairs. Coming to rest in a room, Beth witnesses a sight that chills her to the bone. A doppelganger of Owen sits by the fireplace, cradling a sleeping Beth in his lap. The doppelganger dispels any confusion, asserting he's not Owen but rather the entity Beth encountered during her near-death experience. He identifies himself as nothing and reveals his constant presence ever since. He claims he attempted to manipulate Owen into killing Beth to bring her back to the afterlife, but Owen refused. In a desperate bid to outsmart Nothing, Owen constructed the mirrored house and murdered women who resembled Beth. However, Nothing saw through the deception. The real Beth, who appeared to be asleep on the doppelganger's lap, awakens to the realization that it was all a dream. As she tries to flee the house, Nothing seizes her and strangles her, sending her aloft. He contorts her body into a horrifying mirror image of the sculpture before she succumbs to unconsciousness. The next morning, Claire visits the house searching for Beth but comes up empty-handed. Meanwhile, Beth finds herself adrift on a boat with Nothing, who has assumed Owen's form. Back in the real world, Claire discovers Owen's weapon missing and races to the dock. There, she finds Beth unconscious on the boat and desperately calls out her name, alerting Mel. Together, Claire and Mel rush to Beth's aid, urging her to fight back. Beth, however, sees only a hollow Owen figure whispering falsehoods, encouraging her to take her. In a defiant act, Beth rejects the gun and refuses to give in. This act severs the connection, and she returns to the real world just as Claire dives in to save her. Claire retrieves the gun and pulls Beth to safety with Mel's help. Relieved and overjoyed, Claire embraces her friend. On the shore, Beth catches a glimpse of the entity's silhouette in the boat. Mel, noticing her gaze, asks what she's looking at, to which Beth simply replies, "I understand." That concludes our recap of Night House 2020. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next time.